Rain trickled down the uneven rooftops of Cebu City as 15-year-old June Ramos hurried along the narrow street, his worn-out slippers splashing in muddy puddles. The early morning air smelled of sea salt and damp wood, but June barely noticed. It carried an old, rusted tin can containing the few pesos he earned from shining shoes at the bus terminal. His mother was waiting at home, coughing again, growing weaker by the day, and June knew every peso mattered. Their tiny shack, barely holding together with patched plywood and nails, stood at the end of a crowded lane where laughter mixed with the grinding realities of poverty. Incide, his mother's weak smile greeted him, and June responded with his usual promise, Sanda, ma, someday I'll sing on a big stage. She would look at him lovingly, her tired eyes shining, as if she could already see that dream coming true. June's only treasure was a beat-up radio, the last gift from his father before he passed away 2 years earlier. On nights when the city quieted down and the tricycles finally rested, June would sit by the window, listening to Elvis Presley's voice float through the humid Cebu air. He memorized every lyric, every growl, every soulful bend. Elvis became his teacher, his guide, and his hope. In front of a cracked mirror, June practiced the iconic moves, adjusting a second-hand jacket far too big for him, imagining crowds cheering instead of neighbors yelling for quiet. Weeks passed until one morning, a friend shouted from outside, June. Ireland's Got Talent auditions. They're letting foreigners try. June froze. His heart hammered. The idea felt impossible. A boy who barely had enough to eat auditioning for a show across the world? Ridiculous. But his mother whispered, Go, anak, dreams don't choose the rich only. And with those words, something unbreakable awakened inside him. A charity foundation agreed to sponsor his flight after hearing him sing in a small church event. June couldn't believe it. He packed a plastic bag with his oversized Elvis jacket, one pair of jeans, and the radio that had shaped his voice. When he boarded the plane, he felt like he was stepping into another universe. Arriving at Ireland's Got Talent, he walked through the massive studio with trembling hands. Everything was loud, direct, intimidating. Contestants wore glitter and confidence, while June wore a borrowed coat and fear. The judges, table gleamed under the lights, Amanda leaning forward kindly, Louis chatting casually, and Simon Cowell, stern and unreadable. The audience whispered when they saw him, a thin boy with worn shoes and shy eyes. June stepped to the center of the stage, swallowed his fear, and whispered to himself, For Mama, for Cebu. Then the music began. The first note slipped from June's lips like a soft spark, almost too gentle to grasp, yet something about it made the entire theater fall silent. The audience, who moments earlier doubted him because of his poor appearance and shy posture, suddenly leaned forward as if pulled by an invisible thread. June's voice was no longer trembling, it was transforming, deepening, settling into a warm, velvety tone that echoed the unmistakable soul of Elvis Presley. The lights seemed to brighten around him, outlining the thin, fragile boy from Cebu who now moved with a confidence that hadn't existed minutes ago. His hips swayed in the familiar Elvis rhythm, his fingers flicked upward, and his foot tapped the stage with a smooth, practiced charm. Amanda gasped softly, her hand rising to her mouth as her eyes widened with disbelief. Louis stood up halfway from his seat, his eyebrows raised so high they nearly touched his forehead. But the most shocking reaction came from Simon Cowell. He leaned back, blinking rapidly, then leaned forward again as if needing to confirm that the voice he was hearing was real. His jaw slowly dropped, left hanging open in pure astonishment. It was a rare moment, one the audience recognized instantly. Even the cameraman zoomed in, capturing Simon's stunned expression that would later go viral. As June moved into the chorus of Can't Help Falling in Love, something magical swept through the massive theater. His voice carried a richness and maturity far beyond his age, hitting every note with haunting clarity. People in the crowd exchanged looks of disbelief. Whispers turned into gasps. Gasps turned into cheers. A group of teenagers jumped to their feet. A mother in the front row clutched her chest, tears spilling down her cheeks. June wasn't just performing, he was pouring out every struggle, every sleepless night, every hunger pain, every dream he had ever held onto. Midway through the song, June closed his eyes and tilted his head up toward the ceiling lights. In that moment, the stage seemed to dissolve, and all he could feel was the memory of his mother's fragile hand squeezing his before he boarded the plane. The emotion cracked through his voice, not in weakness, but in a raw power that made Amanda sob openly. Louis wiped his eyes discreetly. Even Simon, known for his hard exterior, blinked away moisture, visibly moved. When June hit the long high note near the end, the audience erupted as if struck by lightning. People shot out of their seats in a standing ovation before the note even finished. His voice soared, unbroken, filled with passion that sent chills through the room. By the time he sang the final line, the theater was shaking with applause, cheers, and pounding feet. June lowered the microphone slowly, his chest rising and falling, and for the first time, he truly realized he had stunned the world. Golden confetti exploded above the stage like a shimmering storm, but for a long second June didn't move at all. He just stood there frozen, his small hands trembling around the microphone, his wide brown eyes staring upward as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The audience's thunderous cheers felt distant, muffled, almost unreal to him, like a dream he was afraid to wake from. Then the reality hit him all at once. Simon Cowell had pressed the golden buzzer for him, a poor boy from Cebu with nothing but a second-hand jacket and a voice shaped by struggle. His knees buckled, and he dropped to the stage floor, covering his face as a sob escaped him, raw, shaking, uncontrollable. Amanda was the first to rush to him, her heels clattering against the stage as she knelt beside his trembling form. She pulled him into a warm embrace, whispering, "You deserve this, every bit of it." Her tears fell onto his shoulder, mixing with the golden flakes that stuck to his hair. Louis walked toward them next, his voice thick as he said, "June, you're a once-in-a-generation talent. You didn't just sing, you told a story through your soul." The cameras caught everything, the boy shaking in disbelief, the judges crying openly, the audience chanting his name like a hero returning home. Simon stood back for a moment, watching June with a softened expression very few contestants ever saw. He cleared his throat and stepped forward, the crowd automatically quieting as he reached out to lift June gently to his feet. "Look at me, son," Simon said, his voice low but steady. June wiped his tears with the back of his hand and looked up. Simon continued, "You came here alone. You came here with nothing, but you gave us everything. That golden buzzer wasn't a charity. It was earned. You are extraordinary." Those words broke June all over again. He pressed his hands to his face, crying harder, his small shoulders shaking. He looked like a child who had finally been told he mattered. The confetti kept falling, glittering around him like falling stars. The audience rose for another standing ovation, their applause echoing through the theater like rolling waves. Backstage, his mother's face flashed in his mind, thin, tired, pale, yet always smiling at him with unshakable belief. He imagined her whispering, "Anak, you did it." June pressed a handful of golden confetti to his chest as if holding her hand through it. He whispered, barely audible, "Mama, we made it." As he walked off the stage surrounded by cheers, tears, and the glow of the golden buzzer, June realized something profound. This wasn't the end of his struggle. This was the beginning of a miracle.